In this video, you will learn some of the basic rules for helping to make sure that your subjects correctly agree with verbs in your sentences. The basic idea is that verbs should agree in number with their subjects. Singular subjects must take the singular verb form, and plural subjects must take the plural verb form. To determine whether the subject agrees with the verb, you must find the simple subject. This is the noun or pronoun that is performing the action or that is being described by a verb. This means that you will need to ignore the phrases and clauses that come in between the subject and verb. It's a good idea to isolate prepositional phrases by drawing a box around them or circling them so that they don't distract you from focusing on the simple subject. It's really going to help you a lot if you can remember the following rule. The subject of a sentence can never be the object of a preposition. Anytime you're working with a sentence and focusing on the grammar, I highly recommend isolating the prep phrases so they don't distract you from looking at the subject of the sentence. So here are some examples of basic subject-verb agreement. In the first sentence, a book of poems by Emily Dickinson is or are on the shelf. To find the subject, our best bet is to isolate the prep phrases so that we can ignore them. Of the poems is a prep phrase, so is by Emily Dickinson. What I'm left with is a book is on the shelf. That makes it pretty easy to find the simple subject book. Book is clearly singular, so I need the singular form of the verb is, which comes back to agree with my subject book. Singular subject, singular verb. The next example, the carpeting you saw in the upstairs bedrooms and in the downstairs basement is or are going to be replaced. Now here I have even more than prep phrases. I actually have an entire relative clause in there. So I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that comes between the subject and the verb so that it doesn't distract me from the simple subject. In this sentence, the simple subject of the verb is carpeting. Carpeting is singular, which means I need the singular form of the verb is. I double check to make sure my subject and my verb agree in number. Probably the place where students most get confused or most have errors with subject-verb agreement is when they're working with indefinite pronouns. For this reason, it's really important to make sure that you know what indefinite pronouns are and that you can recognize whether or not the pronoun is singular or plural. Here is a chart of these singular indefinite pronouns. Another, anybody, anyone, anything, each, either, everybody, everyone, everything, much, neither, nobody, no one, nothing, one, another, other, somebody, someone, something. Singular indefinite pronouns are tricky because our ears usually cannot hear that they're singular. In fact, some of these words actually look like they should be plural. When we see the word everybody, many of us visualize a big room full of lots of people, which makes it seem like it's plural. But in fact, this pronoun is referring to the masses of people as distinct individuals. They're acting as individuals. So if you can remember the indefinite pronouns, at least enough to know that when you see one, you need to double check to see whether it's singular or plural, that's really going to help you start to catch a lot of the errors that you might be making. So let's look at an example. Each of the students has or have to bring a pencil to the exam. Just like we did before, we're going to isolate the prep phrase of the student so that it doesn't distract us. We're left with the subject of the sentence. The simple subject of this sentence is each. Each is always singular. Therefore, I need the singular form of the verb, which is has, which comes back to agree with my subject, each. Plural indefinite pronouns are a little easier because they're slightly more logical and there are only 4 of them. Plural indefinites will always take plural verbs. Both, few, many, and several. Both of my sisters have a spring birthday. Both is always plural, so I need the plural verb have. Several of the students are bringing their textbooks to the review session. Several is always plural, so again, I need the plural form of the verb. A few pronouns can actually be singular or plural depending on how they're being used in context. These words are all, any, more, most, none, and some. With these indefinite pronouns, the number of the pronoun depends upon the meaning of the indefinite in the sentence. And for this, we actually usually have to look at the prep phrase. So in the first example, most of the class was or were interesting. Most can be singular or plural. So to figure out how it's being used, I need to look to the prep phrase of the class. In this sentence, class is singular. If class is singular, that means most is singular, and I need the singular form of the verb was. In the second example, most of the books was or were interesting. Again, my simple subject is most. It can be singular or plural, so I look to the prep phrase of the books. Because most refers to books or is talking about books, most in this sentence is plural, which means I need the plural form of the verb were to agree with my simple subject, most. Another place that student writers and really any writers can become confused is when they have a compound subject. When you have a compound subject joined by and, you will always use the plural verb form. For example, Lola and Josh like to run in the backyard. It's a compound subject, which means it's more than one, aka plural. Therefore, I need the plural verb form. When you have a compound subject joined by nor or, the verb is going to agree with the noun or pronoun closest to it. These conjunctions, even though they're part of a compound subject, separate the two parts of the subject into distinct pieces, and we always want the verb to agree with whichever one comes closest to it. So here's an example. Neither Lola nor Josh likes to go outside when it rains. Lola and Josh are joined by the correlative conjunction neither nor. But I only here am worried about Josh because it's separated by nor. So I need the singular form of the verb likes. Another example, Josh or his parents give Lola a treat. In this example, again, I have a compound subject joined by or, but because or separates the two elements of the subject, I have to focus on parents. Parents is plural, so I need the plural form of the verb give. Now you're ready to try some practice. This is a good time to pause the video, copy the sentences, go through them on your own, and then restart the video to hear the correct answers. In this practice, you're going to choose the form of the verb that correctly completes each sentence. Number 1, each of the items on today's menu has or have been prepared fresh. Find the prep phrases and isolate them. That will leave you with the singular subject each, and therefore you need the singular form of the verb has. Number 2, few of the athletes was or were able to attend the banquet. Isolate the prep phrase of the athletes. You're left with the plural subject few. Since few is plural, were is plural. Number 3, none of the girls has or have a prom date yet. None can be either singular or plural depending on the context. Since none is referring to girls, and girls is plural, none also has to be plural, and the answer is have. Finally, number 4, neither the coach nor the players want or wants to lose the game. Here I have the correlative conjunction neither nor, separating coach and players. So I want to focus on players. Since players is plural, I want to use the plural form of the verb want.